Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. What are we? We are on the 10th of September 2021, and I'm doing a little live stream here. I've got my glasses on, so I might be able to see a little bit clearer some of the comments. It's not going to be a long one, I'm afraid, but I just thought it's titled Bit Flips, and we're going to talk about a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a few things that I started opening in my last video, but it's going to be we're just going to flash through. I've left an amazing link though in the description there. Because I was just doing some research on kind of like what would happen if we had solar flares or just particles coming through, not to mention big debris, but just particles coming through at this time, what we might experience. And I'm just standing here by the side of my van as well. I just want to show you what I've been doing. So check it out. Check it out. I've had to weld up all the side of it. I've had to rip the bottom of the truck off. And just, I don't know if you can see any of that really, but it's been a massive amount of work. Just kind of like, the reason I'm showing you that is ironically, it's just, there she is, the beast. It's a lot of work though on the bottom there though. Oh my God, it's just been like, in fact, the only way of getting around it was to kind of put it off and put it off and put it off until finally, because there's so much work I want to do on the inside of it. And potentially, and there's money locked in that van, but like that with the rusty, when the bottom is all rusted out, you just like, what do? You can't kind of do work on it because we can't really do any real body work inside or out because you've got to rip it all apart, and that's just putting money into something which is not really worth repairing unless you put a load of effort into it. So I've been doing that one up as well, whilst I've been doing this one to try and. That one's needed so much. You can probably see the patches all around it. I've just been ripping all holes into it and re-welding. I've basically donated the other wing, the passenger, the driver's side wing, and chopped that up to use all the metal because it's so thin, the metal on that. You want to try and find something to match it up and then kind of weld it with a MIG welder just to try and get it and knit it together as best I can, and then use kind of arc welders to kind of puddle weld that welder that I put on with a MIG welder just to try and get it all done. But like I say, it's kind of so much to me. I relate everything back to Planet X. Let me go and put this down over here so I'm not holding it the whole time. And this whole thing with this truck, of doing this truck up, I've been putting so many things on the let's bring this chair a bit closer over here so I can put it on there because the table's a bit wet. Hello there. Look, we've got a few people kind of like coming through here. Hi. I don't know if you can see me there. Maybe I can put it on there. The weather might change at any moment. And dear me, it's my mum's birthday the day after tomorrow. So we're going to go. My brother's built this kind of memorial or something for her. So it's quite exciting. So we're going to drive down for her birthday with my dad. And I've got to go and sort something out on the boat now and blah, blah, blah. And so on and so forth. And so just running around doing lots. And I'm just really of a mind that, because of the experiences I've had in my life, is just everything I create in this realm, I'm creating on a higher level. And I've really been taught that in, writing Laughing Gas and going through this whole process. I've really been kind of taught that everything you're doing here, you're doing on much higher levels. It's like every bit of, you're like a projector, or you could say you're like a lens. The human state is like a lens, and whatever occurs here in the human state projects through every cell of your body into a higher state. Trust them to get the chainsaws out right now. Maybe you can't hear that as well as I can hear that, but yeah, we project to a higher space. And so right now, for me, because I can sense what's coming in, there's not I can do really on these videos, apart from kind of discuss a few things here and there. But in terms of can hear you loud and clear. Oh, bless you. Thank you for saying that. Hey Dave, heads up. I know, I'm looking out all the time. We get so bombarded with sunlight here, in the aspects of, well, most of the globe, you have to go right north or right south to get windows on this thing, really, where there's less saturation of sunlight coming through. But I've still got my heads up, always looking out, especially at night, looking for shooting stars and from the US of A. Hello, Michael. Excellent. So it's hopefully you're so going back to this projection idea, it's me right now. It's so important for me in myself because it's so real. This thing is, it's just utterly real. I can't just sit by and watch these massive storms and just keep saying climate change when we can see the grand, fantastic patterns. Your hair has gotten so long. Nice, I know. So it started in the first lockdown, and you know, and it's also a big something that my hair represents a big change in who I am as well, because I feel like I used to have this mullet, and especially when I was in my teens or late teens, and then I kind of saw myself as a bit of an eco-terrorist, and I so jumped on that bandwagon, and it's become, something died inside of me on that eco fundamentalism. Not so long ago, really. It was dying when I wrote Laughing Gas. It was like a bunch of people having a midlife crisis, realizing that everything they'd been shouting out would save the world was an absolute crock of shite, and they were, in actual fact, just totally full of shit. And it's that point where you suddenly realize that actually you've just got to stand down. You've just got to stand down. You know, you've got to stop pointing the finger out there, and you got to buckle the finger back around here. It's like, oh my God, it was me all along. Oh no. You know, and then you start realizing how you, in your state of humanity, are affected by certain conditions, and how so easily we can be goaded in one way or another, you know, to do things, politically motivated to take one side or another, and believe that it's for the good, and because it's for the good, then you are right, and because you are right, then they're wrong, and so comes this divisional idea, or ideas that are kind of plaguing humanity at the moment, one way or the other, where we've taken Jesus off the cross and we've put the earth on the cross and said the earth is dying because of your sins. All these volcanoes pumping out this carbon dioxide. Oh no, sorry. It's you that's pumping out the carbon dioxide, the toxic, evil carbon dioxide. And it's just like we're all in these dynamic stories, and these stories are kind of like emotionally tie us to these kind of like these big corporate lies that are bought by these big corporations for billions. Senators and MPs, you know, everything's kind of like, it's all just kind of sold off. All our ideas are kind of being sold off. Anyway, so back to this projection and back to this time. It's just that for me, you know, I've been doing up this boat Gracie, doing up my van. The van is kind of so symbolic of these times that we live in for me, and the boat. You know, it's just that is sometimes, you know, you've got to do some serious work on some of these things, and you just don't know when you're going to do them. But you know, when you do them, the thing's going to be off the road or out of the water or whatever it is, and that's going to be your window to really do all the shit you've got to do. And so sometimes you have to put some big things you put off right till the end. You know, so I've had that fun. I've taken it to France. I've done all that thing. I got it when I did that whole thing with my brother for Channel 4 or whatever. It was the most horrific thing I'd ever done. It was when in 2015 when I'd made that first video, and I'd put a date on doom, and that's what tears me apart. That's what's made me go so grey so quickly. Was I mean, I just put a date on a flyby, and you know, we've done so many flybys trying to predict and understand this thing, and now we're just in one of these big flybys. Well, we're in the midst of two of them, really. We're actually in the midst of one, two, because we had the pair, we had the big one, and we've got this, what we were calling comet nearwise, coming in the other way. So we're at this either side of the kind of like September, October point, where this big object sits beyond our sun and sits beyond the orbit of Mars. Either side of that September, October point, things are either coming in or going out, and things are either coming in or going out, both sides. So we get this kind of like, we've got so much, I mean, we're just surrounded. It's so different. When I started this model back in 2000 and sort of like 15, when we just had the absolute perfect 200-day anomaly, and we could predict these things every 200 days. We couldn't understand it. We're trying to throw all these things through this kind of like this 500-year-old Copernicus model and just smashing our head against a brick wall, just saying, we can't understand, it just doesn't make sense. And then I get blown out of the water clean, even though I'd had all that massive succession of kind of like of flybys right up to May 2018, and then bam, Kilauea goes off, and then we get the big June 17th, 2018 sighting, and World of Science sighting, and it culminated in me having to turn around and say, guys, I was wrong, and in so many aspects I've been wrong about this flyby. We're just chartering it, we're just trying to make the best understanding, but I did tell you you're going to get the biggest storms you've ever fucking seen, and that we had that. We utterly had that exactly when I told you were going to see that. The worst storms for 1,000 years. For many of you it's ongoing, and now with what's coming in, it's going to, if I'm right about this next object, we've got some bigger stuff coming through. And so for me right now, in the midst of this flyby, it's so important that I try and live out in my own life right now more than making videos, even though it's not doing big complex, until after this September, October flyby, whenever it's going to most affect us. Remember the big 2018 earthquake on, like I say, 28th of September 2018. I made the video saying, you cannot tell me we're not going to get oceanic anomalies. I'm not trying to be a doomer and gloomer. This is happening in our lives. This is really happening. And so before we get to bit flips, before we go over to this idea of bit flips, to get to bit flips, I just wonder, do you remember I just touched base and I didn't really quite get there, because I do kind of waffle on and kind of touch lots of different areas and everything else like that. But what was I talking about? I think I was talking about Galileo and Galileo's time. Actually, I was talking about 1588. I was talking about the storm in 1588 that destroyed the Spanish Armada. I was talking about that time, and I was talking about how Sir Francis Drake would nick all the Spanish gold, not all of it, but they would take a lot of the gold, and it wasn't like big fire. It wasn't like big. I mean, I'm sure it was big fire, cannons, and all the rest of it. They'd try and defend themselves, but when they were outflanked by the greater firepower of the British ships, their option, they've been given an option to kind of give all their gold over and go without dire consequence, was an attractive proposition up against the superior firepower of the British ships. So the Spanish were getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And now you can imagine, if you were feeding into that same equation that it was Jesus, and Jesus was what was empowering the Spanish and made them so powerful. And the Spanish got their head around the idea that it was Jesus coming to embrace them, and they had to do this thing, i.e. invade Britain, the one that was the bad apple, the one that had broken away from the Catholic Church. It wasn't Britain. I mean, the Renaissance obviously started in Germany and had actually spread into Britain because of Henry VIII, because his realization, as much as anything else, that the money they were taking and everything else like that, and the Catholic Church was taking, and the endless war and all the rest of it. We don't really know whether even any of that storyline is really that fundamentally true. We've got to try and piece together out of all of this story, because when I start thinking about these whole mud flood kind of like theories that are coming out, and some of the evidence of all this architecture that goes deep underground, far deeper than we can really understand, that there is evidence of another storyline. And that the days of the disillusionment, when all those churches were burnt, it was a more complicated story than we possibly really truly understand. But notwithstanding the kind of like this kind of idea of this Spanish Armada, this kind of great destruction, and we see the ships coming, I'm assuming, as I'm understanding, or not so much assuming, I'm pretty much sure they came up via the Atlantic and cut in at the south of England, as if at the bottom of Bristol, and came in via that channel. They didn't come in via the Mediterranean, I don't think. But whatever direction they came in, the troops were waiting to be ferried across from what is now Belgium into Britain and begin the killing of the Protestants, to begin the Spanish Inquisition. Instead of just like Bloody Mary, this was going to be, Bloody Mary was just before Elizabeth. Bloody Mary thought she was going to sort of she thought she was, it was a whole kind of like battle in England between the Protestants and the Catholic Church when Bloody Mary was in power. And she was Bloody Mary because she was trying to reverse everything her father had done and try and reinstate the Catholic Church. And then she was pregnant. She had Elizabeth in the tower, waiting for the sort of like waiting for a mandate so she could chop off her head. She was pregnant. She was going to give birth, and then bam, she dies of a cancer in her womb. And the whole Catholic dream. And then the guards come up to get Elizabeth, and instead of, she would have thought when the guards are coming up the stairs, so she's had her baby, I'm going straight to the gallows. Literally, she would have been on her knees praying. And she's instead walked to the throne, and she becomes Queen of England. And the first thing she does is she kicks out all the bankers, and she kicks out all the Catholics. She stops all lending, and she stops. It's a massive change, a massive, suddenly drastic change from the Catholic agenda. And then this big, like, massive thing comes. And we were developing we weren't developing, Elizabeth apparently inherited a very broken country, and the Catholics were taking full advantage, or the Spanish were taking full advantage of that with this massive fleet. Now, you can imagine the time it had taken to build this fleet. This was a massive job. This was all kind of like began with Henry VIII. These things just didn't pop up. Just to make the barrels for these ships takes years and years and years so they can hold the water so you can travel. You know what I mean? The whole thing is like a massive. And then you've got to build the ships. They just deforested the whole of Spain to do this. They deforested way beyond Spain to do this. The whole of Europe probably. It was massive deforestation to this big onslaught attack on Britain for its redemption. It would be served up upon it for its breaking from the Catholic Church, for whatever had happened. For whatever, I was going to say Tony Blair, how mad, Freudian slip, for whatever Henry VIII had started, whoever Henry VIII really was. And picture that time, this massive fleet coming in to ferry the troops across. What would be your priority? It would be my priority. If I didn't know any better than what I know today, I'd be thinking, every ship that I could stop or take out is a ship that can't ferry troops to Britain. So I'd just be wanting to destroy as many of those ships as possible. I'd be wanting to send every ship I had to take out those ships and to use everything within my power to stop those troops being able to be ferried across for an invasion. And yet, where was famously Francis Drake? So Francis Drake. Well, yeah, I'm just thinking if anyone's going to sort of like, as far as I understand, he was playing bowls. I was going to say everyone was going to shout out, bowls! He was playing, and it's very kind of, to me, he obviously knew that you could not go to war because this was the mistake the Romans had made in 262. They had been decimated by this thing because anything that is of war is decimated. And that was my message when I wrote Laughing Gas. That's the message I had before I even knew about Planet X. I was just told when I had my big message, and I finally presented, and I said, listen, I've got to tell you, to the ayahuasca gods, I was just like, basically, I realized that I'm full of shit. I realize I've been educated with a lot of nonsense, and I just don't know where we are anymore. So I come to you with an empty glass and say, what can I do for you? Because my world is absolutely, I wanted to know what the fuck was going on. That was literally the question. What the fuck is going on? That's all we want to know now. What the hell is going on? Am I the enemy? Are they the enemy? Where is the imposter? Where is the subversion? What is dragging this world down? Come on, let's push everything else aside and say, let's cut to the chase. Let's get to the real issue of what is subverting this world. What is driving these agendas of belief that make us do the absolute opposite of the absolute logical route? Why do we not just put a line through CO2 zero and just put abundant, clean energy? That's what we all want. That's what we all need. You put that in the main equation of your kind of like of your intention of where you want to get and what you want to achieve. So we see us in these crazy situations, but yet we see these patterns. We've got Biden, who absolutely pulls all the troops out. Says by the 31st of August, every fighting force has got to be out of Afghanistan. And then all these weapons left there for all the enemy to take all this power. It's like feeding them into the same thing. And yet the reason I wrote Laughing Gas was I was told, don't worry about your Earth. I've already deployed my best. Unprecedented peace will now be waged upon your Earth. So this massive attempt is it's created so much anger for a prolonged period of time, just like Francis Drake. And then suddenly, Biden pulls all the troops out. Everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, suddenly all the right wing are like, we want war, we want war, we want war. So they're crying out for war, saying this is unjust because of the way this is being done. So they end up calling out for war, but the country is not at war. And that's why it's pulled all its things out. Now, this assumption leaves you in a place of, when you look at this, could we assume by all of what's happened that the Planet X system, if it's there to do like I'm doing with my truck, it comes into the place where it needs some serious work. It's a point where I can take it off the road and I've got to do some serious work to it. I can take it off the road, I rip it apart, I get the plasma cutters out, I chop out all the shit. All the rusty stuff. I just hack it out. It's brutal. Utterly brutal. It's terrifying. But it's that point where it's the only point where I can really stop and rip out and gut out all the shit. And when that system is in operation, but it does that we have this system that comes in that is the plasma cutters that cuts out all of the shit. Get it ready for the new cycle. Weld some new bits in, chunky metal, start fresh, get all the main kind of substantial suspension points and that sort of stuff solid, all the kind of the bodyworks, main structure points solid. So when you're going over bumps, all the cracks don't come down and just rip all your bodged filler out, you know what I mean, within sort of like within 6 weeks. You know what I mean? It's just like this is the point where it comes into the docking yard. This is the point you cannot go to war. Cannot go to war. This is the point where you want to feed your enemies the idea that they can go to war. And so well, Europe's going to be put a lot of pressure on Europe. If it wants to enter this free trade deal, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to have to join NATO, and it's going to have to back the European alliance. Is going to have to back an agenda to do something in probably Afghanistan or the Middle East within all this process. So that's why I wanted to finish. The second thing was, before we get to the bit flip thing, was about the fleet, British fleet. I don't know a lot about it, so I'm not going to even post any links to it, but there was news that the British fleet near Iran lost control of their navigation. It was a number of vessels. I'm not too sure how many. It was like 7 or 8. And this happened quite recently. This was a couple of weeks ago. And now this could be a red herring. We just don't know. This could be a red herring by the British government to try and look weak, to entice an attack. Say, oh, the British. This could be legit. And this could be Iran, Russia, or China using superior technology to hack British systems, British navigation systems. That's what most of us would be led to believe. If anything ever came out and any of this there was any truth in any of this, it would be used as a blame mechanism for either Russia, China, or Iran, or all of them. But then I started thinking, well, I read you that chapter from George Smith's book, about UFOs. Some of his stories about how we are being protected now by very, 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 very high intelligence that will not let us go into war. So we don't have to. So we can't take it to that place because this Earth with this type of technology wouldn't be able to sustain that. It would annihilate this planet. And so they will not allow that to occur. And when I heard that story, that's what flashed into my mind, that it was higher intelligence that had tampered with them and said, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. There's going to be no high technology allowed to be used in this process in that fashion. And that was. I just wanted to bring your attention to that because I found that quite interesting, because it looks like we're on the cusp of so much here. But I wonder how much our governments really can push forward with some of their agendas right now. Not that they will be attacking, like I say, because some countries are going to, depending on which side of the equation that they're on, are going to be, drawn into this because of a state of belief that they have the right to do this. Because they're special because of their beliefs. Their belief makes them special. They just have to believe in this and they are special. It doesn't matter if they're backed an agenda, which is horrific, as long as they believe in this or that. And we all need to be taking our individual intentions. We all fly within those. That's how we all fly. That's the vehicle in which we all fly, our fundamental intentions. So it's really good to kind of track back your intentions of what you're trying to achieve and think about the environmental impact of how you're trying to kind of achieve those things. And okay, so that was it really on that subject. We're, like I say, we're in the middle of the big subject. We're in the middle of my big flyby at the moment. And after this, I can sit down and start making more models and everything else of that. But until this September, it could be October. Like I say, last year I think it was late October, the biggest earthquake. Is it going to be late September? Is it going to be? We just don't know. We just don't know. But I can guess that we're going to have a big flyby based on all the previous flybys we've had since 2000. Since I've been charting this 2016 with Matt Rogers' shot on the 15th of August, that epic one that I keep posting. I do love Matt. His videos are getting better and better. His presentations are getting better and better, and he's always been utterly dedicated, just kind of posting all these different people's kind of shots and trying to bring them together and trying to bring some sense to this and bring some discussion to this, and credit to everyone out there that's part of this. You all see this in your own special ways. Alex Lujan, I love his work. I love his dedication to it. He's really helped me enormously with so many of his epic shots. There's so many out there, that are part of this big community of people, sky watchers. And so bit flips. So I've left the link there to that subject, because a bit flip, we can understand that. You can understand that how Well, the video I just watched, it was two stories. The first one happened in, I think it was in 2003. Ironically, I think it was in like May 2003. You might have got these dates wrong, but someone who'd got sort of like only 20 or 30 votes or something had way more votes, and the total number of votes, including hers, was like 40,000 or something over the total amount of people that had voted. And they were like, well, how can that be? Had it been election fraud? Had it been because they recounted them and found that she didn't have nearly as many votes? And was it election fraud? You know, it kind of reminded me of, what was it, Dick Gregory, you know, when he'd got 6 million votes or something in November 1968, a black comedian who was basically made president-elect, and they took all his votes. And they said, no way could a black comedian win the heart of the vote of the American people. So they took all his votes and they just gave them to Richard Nixon. 6 million votes, just because no way could a black man. So they wanted to know something like that had happened. And but actually what it was a bit flip. It was a particle coming out from space through our atmosphere, breaking right through, hitting the random access memory that stored all this information, which it was running, and turned a 0 into a 1. Turned 30,000 feet altitude cruising speed into 10,000 feet. And the plane went into a almost a vertical dive. And people's heads, all the luggage cabinets, all the way along, holes where people's heads had just gone straight up through the ceilings. And the other one, that one was on the. That one I believe was in. The interesting thing about the dates was the election thing was in 2003. Was in May 2003, and the plane incident was in October 2008. That October position when we're right next to this big object. I mean, I always check the dates to see what astronomically we were nearby. That's why I was so curious about it and that sort of stuff. But you remember when and then 2003, May 2003. Well, think about what we were getting close to in 2004. The big tsunami in 2004. I can feel rain coming down. I'm sitting down outside. So listen, I'm just going to sort of really briefly. Do you remember in 2017 when I came to America on the day of the flyby, Steve Olson's big Planet X conference, and all the big speakers came, and he put the conference on the day of the flyby, on my predicted flyby. And the flyby came, you saw it on both sides of the Atlantic, and the European Southern Observatory came out with this big press release saying that 230 million light years ago, 2 neutron stars had collided and caused a big bang, and the electromagnetic energy, because the LIGO detector, another ESO detector, gravitational anomaly detector, had all gone pop, had all received the same data that a gravitational anomaly occurred. And they said that because, and then later other scientists postulated that, well, if that proves, because they'd received a gamma ray radiation burst at the same time, and they were like, well, that means that electromagnetic energy and photons or light particles travel at the same speed. Just going to sit in my car and hopefully still get a signal, because I'm about to take off, and travel at the same speed. And this is the type of bullshit that we've been surrounded by, this endless one piece of bullshit thrown into another piece of bullshit, when all these bits of bullshit are all just thrown together to hide something, to conceal something. It's not there to inform you, it's there to deceive you. NASA means to deceive in Hebrew. You're getting incredible weather system striking you now. It's all happening. It's all really going on. It's really, really, really time to prep in every way you can. Do all the things you've got to do right now. Just do it. So what? I'm going to end up with 2 nice vans at the end of this. Nice boats that I just put battered old things that are rusted out, that I've just put time and effort into to try and build and try and stay productive and try and sort things out. And if nothing happens, you know, I'm going to look like a bit of an idiot saying these things are going by. But what's causing these massive storms? Biggest storms you've seen for 1,000 years. I can predict on the money. Put my money where my mouth is. Put my money on the table and say, guys, that's what's going to happen. And you're going to shout me down and say, Davy Dobbs is as full of shit as it can get. And others, then they just have to switch me off because they spent so long bad-mouthing me. And then they see it going on that they can't raise their heads above that because they feel so bad. Because I just carry on regardless, because I am relentless. I'm like the relentless maverick. I am relentless. I keep going on with my little ideas and my little things, and I push on, you know, because I got to live with myself through these times. What I do, what I don't do, I got to justify back to me. I'm not in any belief about this. When this things, movements are what I will put into my calculator. And that is how I will derive the next flyby and the next potential. And people have donated and that sort of stuff. And those people who've donated to help me, I promise you that money is safe. You know, this will go on. This is happening. But right now, I'm in the middle of this flyby. Just like you guys, there's not a lot for me to say right now. There's just for me to do. And I've got to sort my end out a little bit. And you guys have got to take responsibility. You know, I was told when I got this message, you know, my mum said, White Cloud wants me to channel for you. Can I come down? And he came down and he said, and he channeled for my mum. And he said, we have you here in the oceans, meaning the Somerset levels. And of course, that was all ocean before the last mud flood. Mud filled up all that bay. He said, we have you here in the oceans. And he said, it's good for you. He said, but he said, you're going to get a message. What was the other thing he said? I was just on that. We have you here in the oceans. I'm trying to think of the bit he said. God, it was a convoluted, because he also said there, he said, you're going to get a message. And he said, it's what you want. And I'd always been told that we were approaching the wall and that nothing gets through the wall that is of war. And so it was like I knew that it was going to tell me what the wall was. I'd always asked, what is the wall? And it said, finish South America. So finish writing a story. And then it will unfold what the wall is and the nature of the wall. But when you see the wall, that's all you'll see. It will take all of your attention. And it kind of has. It's grabbing by the balls all the way through this. It's so amazing to charter this thing. The sightings are just so sensational. It's so utterly beautiful and amazing what's happening. You know, it's so exciting to see this, to see the real cogs of the system we really live moving around us, just like Galileo saw, just like Isaac Newton saw, just like William Herschel saw. All these greats that have charted this every 84 years, this big cycle. Not that it's an 84-year cycle, because it's obviously bigger than that. You know, it's obviously much bigger, but that is an aspect of that within this. And but yeah, bit flips. It's that time now that we start coming very close to the tail of this thing and all the energy, and it could affect us not just in big ways. You know, what we're seeing in terms of a bit flip, in terms of a particle traveling so fast, and it can just move through circuitry and just energize that point of the RAM that would register either, you know, a binary, or you know, in the binary language of a yes and no, I guess, of a naught and a zero, of a naught and a one, and trigger that. And we see this happening. You could end up with some crazy things where you could sort of go to the bank in the morning, you could find you've got 10 million pounds in there. It really, you could be in a plane and it could just suddenly, an algorithm could change in the circuitry and cause it on flight control to do anything. It's we come to intense period in this now. This flyby, however near or far, it's going to be quite close to us. And it's not as big as this big blue planet. Again, we're going to have to wait another year for that, and then we could get to that point and realize we could squeeze another year. I can't mathematically, because we also understand that now. We understand its speed. It's traveling at 35,000 miles an hour, roundabout, and this makes sense with everything else. And yet, every time Earth does 12 cycles around the sun, it does 13. It travels 1 month faster every year. And we know that because it's done. We've charted this for long enough, and we've seen all its movements. We've seen the way this thing has slowly affected us since 2018. Excuse me. 2018, 2019 doubles, 2020 it's exponential, 2021 we get the worst storms, and we're just watching, and we can charter it. We can literally charter it because we'd seen the same pattern in 2004 to 2008. The big tsunami in 2004 and the big Sichuan earthquake in 2008. This thing is utterly charterable. Every aspect of this is utterly charterable, but it does rely for you to leave the Copernicus Catholic model, to leave this religious model, to get an overview of this. And to understand, you can start seeing a much bigger picture, a much smaller picture of your history line and this grand deception, this story that has been thrown over us, and this, how we are, the left and the right wing politics ideas, they died for me. They died for me back in 2008. Since that time, some of the people that I'd have stereotypically kind of swerved away from because of their they were too Tory, or they were too this or too that, that all died. That all died for me years ago. Tories, I've got some Tories that are my closest mates, and I've got some sort of actually left wingers that are my closest mates, and some. It's beyond politics anymore. It all just means nothing. It all just utter bullshit to swing you one way or another for another big scam, profit-making scam in all of this, because of the way our economies are built and everything else like that. And all I can say is this planet is going into the docking bay of big changes. It's entering into that, and there's a lot of influences one way or another to goad you, so you become this or that within that, and you really, really want to try and steer so far away from too much belief. Take what I'm saying and just run it for your own calculators, run it for your own models. Yeah, big stuff going on. Stay with it. So lovely to see a lovely turnout of people in here. Like I say, I haven't had any chance to kind of go through comments or anything, or mail or anything. I've just had to I put everything on the back burner myself, and just realised I just had to sort some stuff out. I really had to sort all mine out. But I'm just urging you to do the same. You know what I mean? It's just I know we've been at this point so many times before, and we all have our different opinions about what's happening. So you've all got to decide which way you're going to go, but there's a whole lot of different things that could play out here. And if you haven't been, you know what? It's becoming a political thing if you are or you're not. And this is what they want. It's another political divide. And if you are, you know what? Because of a political statement, to make a political statement, whoever you are, nature doesn't store all of us, or what it's genius in. You are the custodian of all that this race is. You are the custodian. You hold the genetic blueprints within yourself. Same genetic blueprints that Wat Tyler, Peasants Revolt, had running, was made his being. All of your greats, Jesus and everyone else. All these genes passed down the line. You are the front line of that genetic miracle that you are, that we are. You know, and when you kind of, you know, you look at some of these big companies that specialize in different things. I always think Moderna is very interesting because they specialize in splicing technology. You know, when you're splicing, you're snipping, you're chopping, like a circumcision. Taking, you know, Moderna uses kind of like, you know, the old-fashioned sort of stuff, you know, where you kind of talk about how synthetic insulin taken from an islet cell. Synthetic insulin taken from an islet cell, taken from, you know, that not from an islet cell. Well, yeah, the genetic information spliced out. You know, the DNA taken from an islet cell from the pancreas that produces insulin, and then to snip that command chain, take that command chain, separate it, and then splice, well, snip, splice, or cut, or whatever they call it, in a piece of bacteria that produced something not too dangerous, not toxic, whatever the bacteria did, and then splice in the insulin instruction into that bacteria. So that bacteria produces then insulin. Then you have synthetic insulin. You know, you don't know how much of the command sequence necessary you've actually managed to capture that makes the insulin. Is it exactly the same? But when Moderna gets involved and that sort of stuff with anything, you kind of have the understanding that there's kind of splicing going on, cutting and splicing, and dangerous things to play with. There's a lot of pressure. Get your house in order, just get everything in order. That's all you can do. That's all I can do now, you know. That's all I can do right now. And then when we see what happens with this flyby that I'm assuming is coming in right now, you know, and will affect us some point in September or even late October, we truly do not know the exact point of crossing of this object. You know, the Mexican earthquake the other day, all the blue lights that were going off when the earthquake occurred a couple of days ago. They're all signs. They're all signs of our proximity to something. So go easy out there, lovely people. Sorry I'm waffling on a little bit. I'm kind of like, I know I've got to just put everything into gear now and just go and sort a load of stuff out. And I'm just going to continue to do that and have a little slot in chats with you here and there and trying to keep up with it. I keep popping my head in, but I've noticed that I feel like a lot of us are kind of like just watching this space and trying to sort ourselves out, just thinking, what the hell is going on? And big golden rings of light around you. I'm going to get a chance to sit down and send out a lot of, there's a few books. I'm putting a new cover on my book, Laughing Gas, and giving it a new title and just experimenting with it, really. I just don't know. Maybe I'm not going to do that. I don't know, but I'm just sending that out to. I'm just organising that and sending that out at the moment to a few people. I know quite a few people are waiting on different bits from me and that sort of stuff. And apologies for being a bit crap there. I've just kind of been trying to sort out other stuff on my end here a little bit. And because, like I say, when we're in this flyby, if nothing happens here or whatever goes down here, this is just whatever it is whatever it is, And but after this, like I say, we can sit down and we'll have a lot more information about how all of this thing really works and the real scale and the size of all of this. We can really, we can really start mapping out. We can really get. Where I was going with that 35,000 miles an hour with the big blue thing is it traveling 13 times faster than us. Is that we get an idea for the first time how close the object that blue thing is orbiting is to our system. You think if it's doing 13 rotations when we're doing 12 and it's traveling 35,000 miles an hour to us, our 67,000 miles an hour. Just think about the circumference of that thing compared to ours. It's small. It's half the size of Earth. And if it's going around this big object, then this big object is unbelievably close to our sun, which means it's huge and it is just beyond Mars, slightly below the ecliptic plane of our system at the moment, sitting in the kind of like October-November position. Overall, the main body of it, maybe it's more the, I battle with this. I really battle with the exact central point of it. Is it more, it's a very, very difficult thing to pinpoint exactly, but it's close and it's big, and the only thing that's blocking it out in the night sky is high technology, as we saw on the 14th of October 2016 with Jeff P. shot, where you saw the big plasma shot and then everything falls down and you see that massive sudden sun just suddenly appear in the daylight, in the night sky, like 10-11 o'clock at night, pitch black, and then boom, the plasma charge hits into the side of what we assumed would be Jupiter with all the stripes. The same thing, keep seeing it over and over again. The blue Kachina, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it Harrington. Alex Lewin would call it Harrington. You've got a million different names for these things. But every like 84 years, we invent a new dwarf planet, because this thing will always be on the far side of the system to where it should be 84 years later. And the only way to get around that is to invent a new planet over and over and over again. Repeat the same pattern over and over and over again to keep us in that same story, that same disconnected from the galactic center, to allow this whole thing to keep going round, where humanity gets born back into ignorance and it lets go of all that it was, forgets everything, comes a blithering fool with no memory of who it was, no memory of its guides, complete loss of connection to its gods. big reset. You don't always have to do it this way, though. So I'm just doing my little ends here. There's not a lot more I can do. Loving you. Really kind of like, big golden rings of protection around you. Really use that protection. Really invite it in. When times get difficult, know that you are sovereign. And the reason you are sovereign is that when you stand within your divine light, you are very protected. When you track your intentions back, you can help qualify to that which wants to help you, what you're trying to achieve. That can kind of help you along the way, because if it can't make decisions for you, nothing out there can help you if you don't know where you're going. To really kind of navigate cognitively what you can try and achieve, what you're going to need, just get it all in order best you can, all the little bits. And if it's all just nothing happens and everything goes fine, it's just like Davy Dobbs, then just go around all those places where all the people have just got nothing and take all that you just don't need down to those places. Give out all that food. Give it out, share it out. Just make sure that all of it is a healthy process. We all used to keep larders full of food back in the day. That was the old-fashioned way. Just before supermarkets, before abundant cheap cash. Most people don't know anger. All those old classics, all the kind of like Charles Dickens classics, Tale of Two Cities and Oliver Twist and that sort of stuff. Every sentence told through hunger and desperation. We don't know that because we're saturated with cheap food everywhere that we don't experience. You see a predator, and a predator is the most ferocious predators are the most cuddly and sleep the most, like cats, bears, and that sort of stuff. Not that bears are cuddly, but you get what I mean. It's just that when their bellies are full, they can just so easily relax so much because they can uptake their protein so quickly and so easily because they're so able in the realms of hunting. They don't have to graze all day on vegetation. They can massively take in a vast amount of nutrients, and so they can relax when they're not fighting. Now, a human being is a predator as much as anything else. It's learned to be a predator, and the key to that is hunger. And when we get hungry, we can get angry, and we can go, and our intentions change. The way in which we see the world changes when we're hungry. Things that were very difficult are very easy. Going up, talking to a stranger and asking for help, asking for all this sort of stuff when you've got money in the bank and a 4-digit beep, 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 beep. And you could go and ask someone, but you don't really want to go and ask them. You could go embrace the situation. All these things that might be a little bit tricky are a piece of piss when you're famished, when you're hungry. You're a predator. A hungry man is an angry man, as Bob Marley said. So they've got buttons on their dashboard that when the right amounts of blame are put in, they can trigger human emotions which we didn't know we had. We'd forgotten about. There's so much stuff that we have forgotten. Take care. All the love in the world. Big golden rings of light. Really work on your intentions. What you're going to try and achieve.
who you are in all of this. Who is I? What is I? Where is I going? What is I doing now? What is I manifesting now? Keep breathing. Big golden rings of light, really picture them around, really ask for the help, really think about what you're going to try and achieve in all of this, all the different things you're going to try and do, and just think, God, am I going to really do that? Am I going to really try and get that together now? God, it seems like I'm not bothered, blah, blah, blah. Come on. Más fuerte. Pone las pilas, put the batteries in, power it up. Okay. Ciao.